Okay, I'll try and follow on from David. I feel like I'm the meat in the sandwich here between David's main course and Rocco, but I'll try and keep it short as the meat in the sandwich. When we were given this title by Augustine in one of our twice weekly fortnightly meetings that we normally have, we were intrigued by this title, that it was a city versus architecture. And we thought this was an intriguing idea. It had never really occurred to us that they were in conflict. And it never really occurred to us that there was an opposition in any of this. So we were kind of intrigued, and we sort of sat down and tried to scratch our heads a bit about what this might mean. We were also intrigued by the challenges and opportunities as well, because as probably everybody in this room who's involved in architecture knows, sometimes challenges are opportunities that you need to sort of take hold of, and what seems like an opportunity is sometimes more of a challenge than you would like. So this was also a thing that we were intrigued by. So we sort of sat around and started scratching our heads on how we could try and put together a few slides for this talk. And when we were doing it, a few projects that we've done came to mind. So this is just a few slides that just sort of maybe try to show you some of the things that occurred to us while we were scratching our heads about this issue. This is the Royal Academy in London. This is the front door. Most of you probably know this building. And this is the front door as it exists at the moment. In a very way that a normal sort of old, ancient, rusty old city like London has developed. Behind that front door, there's a whole swathe of buildings that have been sort of added and knocked down and added over time. And behind those, behind the main facade, which is, if I can use this, maybe I can't. Okay, this is the facade that you saw here. Then behind it, just here, there's an old, what was once the facade to the Royal Academy, which looked something like this. So this was the facade, and over time, over 200 years later, it sort of got replaced by what someone thought was a better facade. If you just keep an eye on that top left window there that we've sort of circled, this is now what you get now. So this is the piece of London that exists now, and this exists in pieces of London and lots of other European cities all over the place. So that once fine window is now just sort of leftover space in between two old, ancient, very sort of decrepit old buildings, and we were then given the challenge or the opportunity of saying, so how do you try and deal with this space to try and make it into something? The only way to try and do that was actually to say, well, then maybe this becomes an entrance, and it became an entrance to a new series of galleries, and the new series of galleries became an extension to the Royal Academy that now is sort of used quite widely by people, and a sort of a new set of spaces that people can enjoy year-round. In a similar way, again, another building in crusty old ancient, rusty old London. This is the British Museum. So built between 1823 and 1856. And again, a series of kind of crusty old spaces that have sort of been assembled together over many years and hold lots of crusty old relics. And they sort of sit there in the middle of London in sort of a series of old spaces. And again, it was a case of, oops, sorry. It was to say then, how do we begin to sort of make these spaces work? So what you they say is, again, as before, the lower slides here show you this was what was once considered to be the front door of the British Museum. So this one on the bottom left and the one on the bottom right were added afterwards. So again, what was a once piece of fine London is superseded by another piece of London. So this idea that these cities are never constant, they're constantly reinvented and constantly changed for something that someone considers to be a better or a more impressive replacement. So what that gives us again is a series of redundant old spaces. So is this a piece of city? Is this a piece of architecture? Is it city versus architecture? What do you do with these leftover old pieces of space? So in this idea, again, to try and sort of make that space more of what it could be, to try and sort of give it a new relevance for London. This was now sort of a space that was opened out and covered over. And in a similar way at the front, again, the space opened out and covered over. And also by doing this then, the way of trying to make it even more maybe just a piece of London, the museum sort of opened out and actually became a through street. So you can now walk straight through the middle of the British Museum from 9 till 6, from dawn till dusk, and it becomes a through passage. It's a street just like any other in the City of London and links many of the sort of famous City London landmarks. So all of these buildings, are these buildings, or are these pieces of city? Are they covered streets, or are they all of it? Is this city, or is this architecture? This is what we were thinking about as we scratched our heads in relation to Augustine's comment. At the other end of it again then, there's this building which again we've just recently finished up in Beijing. This is Beijing Terminal 3. So now again, we were sort of thinking, is this a building, or is this actually just a piece of a city? If you overlay it on Hong Kong, you can just see the Knowles building down here left where we're sat right now. So it sort of stretches effectively right across over to almost to Pacific Place. So is this a building, or is this a piece of a city? So it's kind of hard to sort of work that one out. 3.2 kilometers long, 0.8 of a kilometer wide, 1.32 million square meters. So just an enormous piece of infrastructure. And again, what is this? It has roads, so it has multi-lane roads with taxi spaces and drop-offs and big reception spaces, and some of them are covered and some of them aren't. So it kind of acts like a city in that place. It has transport interchanges, it has security posts, it has police depots, it has customs places, so that seems like a city too. And it has big reception spaces, it has restaurants, bars, cafes. So is this a building, or is this a piece of a city? I guess it's somewhat of a rhetorical question, but what it made us think was actually, what is all of this about? The city versus architecture. When does it become architecture, and when does it become a city? And what is architecture? As officers, and as all of you in this room, I'm sure, have been asked at some point to design everything. So if we're designing a door handle or a table, or if we're designing a building or a bridge or an airport, is this architecture, or is this just what we do as the people in the profession that we work in? And why is this important? Well, I guess it's important because it's in touch with all the different people that we meet, and everybody comes into contact with all of these things that we do. And the numbers are big. I mean, these are the visitor numbers for just the 3 quick projects that I've just showed you. So I guess all of these things that we do, whether it's city, whether it's architecture, it affects a lot of people. So I guess it's the people that's the key thing here. So maybe this should have been people, challenges and opportunities, rather than city, challenges and opportunities. So if we start looking at the people that we're designing for, or the people that are sort of coming into contact with everything that we do, maybe that's the way we can start to look at some of the challenges and the opportunities. And the people are important, I guess, because we've obviously been reading similar books to David. If you start to look at some of the frightening statistics that actually occur with people, it's extraordinary. This is a map of the migration of people from rural to urban living over the last 200 years, and there's this extraordinary migration of people to cities within the last 20 years, and we all know that this is an increasing trend. So people moving from cities to these urban environments is gathering pace, and will continue to do so.